everybody? It's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. You're going to like this. So we're going to be talking about some of the battles in the Civil War and the characters that are involved. I think you will find this... I hate to say it's enjoyable. We talk about the massive loss of life because these are real events. But the story is incredibly intriguing and entertaining, captivating. I should probably say captivating because, again, talking about the massive amounts of loss of life today shouldn't be entertaining, but captivating. Man, that's the word I want to go with. Today will be captivating. All right. So... let me make myself smaller here. Beep, 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 beep. So we're back to the war in the East. If you remember, the war in the East is the attempt to take over Richmond. Lincoln's got tons of troops, all right? And he just needs somebody in his, plan A to walk down to Richmond and take it over, all right? The problem is all his best generals have gone to the other side. So, this is who he is left with. And I'll make myself smaller here, get myself out of the way as much as I can. Alright. So, I'll be over here on Lincoln because Lincoln doesn't change. Alright. So, here's where we currently are. This is his bench of backup generals because all his best generals have gone to the South. Like Robert E. Lee, who, as we've mentioned, is just sitting around at the South, not in charge of anything, just washing dishes. You guys need me yet? Nope, y'all good? All right, y'all just let me know. He's back to washing dishes. All right, so Lee, all right, Lee is in the South, not in charge of anything. He was the head of the United States military, one of the top guys that left, if not the top guy that left. So, this is who Lincoln has. Currently, Irving McDowell got put in charge at the very beginning, all right? The problem with Irving McDowell is that he lost. He lost at the first Battle of Bull Run, went down there. Now, was it necessarily his fault? Not necessarily. He wasn't given enough time to train his men, but Lincoln, not a big fan of people that lose. So, Irving McDowell was put in charge at the first Battle of Bull Run here at the East, and Grant got put in charge here with the Anaconda Plan to take over the Mississippi River. Shocking everybody, he's actually won. So, he's still over there in the West doing his thing. So Lincoln, when somebody loses, he's not a big fan. So what's he do to Irving McDowell? Fired. Irving McDowell is fired. Now, that's the term I'm going to use here. He's not actually kicked out of the military. He's just demoted, not allowed to be in charge of the military anymore. But for the story here, we're going to say he's fired. Lincoln's like, no, you're done. So, who is he going to try to have go down and take over Richmond now? So, this is who he's got left. The old guy, the veteran whose best days are behind him and is slow. All right. The guy who's been on the team for a long time and you can't remember his name. Now it's weird to ask him what his name is because who remembers? That's who he has. He has the moron, the coward, all right, and the crazy dude. Crazy dude's at the end of the bench, eating a live squirrel. And Lincoln's like, what is wrong with you? And he's like, there's crazy dude, all right? So Lincoln's like, all right, let's just, straightforward here. I'm going to put the old veteran in charge, all right? So the old veteran's name is General George McClellan, all right? This is a picture of George McClellan. Now you're like, Mr. Wagstaff has said he's old multiple times. That dude doesn't look super old. Yeah, he's really not. He's actually younger than Lincoln. So the reason I've done this, in your mind I want you to think of old dude, is because McClellan has a lot of good attributes. And we're going to talk about those in a second. His one huge negative in his life and his abilities is that he's slow. Like crazy. He's overly cautious and he's incredibly slow. All right. Meaning when it comes to moving troops, he does everything on a very slow, methodical pace. He is a very organized leader. He is a very smart leader. All right. He is very well prepared and usually has a fantastic plan. All right. However, he doesn't implement these things quickly. In warfare, all right, the element of surprise is very important. He's never going to have the element of surprise Because he's slow. Being slow is detrimental in warfare because it never gives you the advantage in battle. All right? You're always reacting to somebody else. All right? You're never being proactive, you're reacting. So that is a huge mark against him. But because he's so cautious and so well prepared, his men love him because they know McClellan's not going to send you into a battle not being prepared. So McClellan is actually loved by his men, is very popular among a bunch of people in the North. And keep in mind, Lincoln, not so popular. All right? This war now for Lincoln has actually gotten to a point where, since it's not going super easy, a lot of the North is like, why are we fighting this? Why is our president fighting this? Just let them go. They have slavery. We've hated them for a while now. Let them go. So Lincoln, while obviously the South hates him, they left. The North is actually turning against Lincoln, and they don't really want to fight this war. All right, but Lincoln again is like, we're going to fight it and we're going to win. So he puts McClellan in charge in large part because McClellan, all he has to do is take an army, take it down to Richmond, and take it over. Lincoln comes up with like 100,000 man armies over and over and over. Tons of immigrants, tons of people to choose from. You're drafting all types of people. There's no shortage of troops for the South. So McClellan, all right, is going to be sent down to the South, all right, in order to take over Richmond. Now, let me show you how this is going to work out. So I'm going to take me and move myself over here, all right. This is going to be called the Seven Pines Battle. Now, as I said, McClellan, all right, is very well organized. So let me show you where things are here. We're going to say, right, what color do I want to use for this? We'll use pink, all right? So, and I'm moving it over a little bit just so I can give myself enough room here to draw what I need to draw here. So this here is Richmond, all right? So that is Richmond, Virginia. This right here is Washington, D.C. All right? So he needs to go from Washington, D.C., boom, down to Richmond and take it over. The problem with that, all right, is what happens to be right in between the two? It's an area called Bull Run. They already have a bad taste in their mouth over Bull Run, so McClellan absolutely does not want to go to Bull Run. So here's what McClellan is going to do. This is actually relatively smart. All right. So I'm going to use the Union Army in blue. Is instead of coming down here like this and going right from Washington, D.C. down to Richmond, he has got a new strategy, and it's pretty smart. And he had plenty of time to train and get all this set up. Is that instead of coming straight down here, he is going to take it out here to the ocean, and he's going to put all of his men on little boats. Boop, 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 boop. All right, and these that's my boat. It's going to sail all the way down here. All right, on little boats. Here's another little boat. It's not probably going to sail that far out the ocean, but he's going to sail all the way down here and come into Virginia from the side. All right, so McClellan loads all his troops up on a boat, sails them down here, and comes on the side with the idea that he is going to attack Richmond from the side, and they're not going to expect it. He actually has the element of surprise. The South is not expecting this to happen. However, when he gets off of his boat and he comes marching across Virginia, he gets just a few miles in, and he has an army of 100,000 people. 100,000 people, all right? He gets just inside here, and he runs into a small little army, and I'm going to do the Confederacy in green, all right? He runs into a small army of 15,000 Confederate troops. Now, they're up on a hill, right? They're up on a hill. So, when he sees them, he has an army of 100,000. There's 15,000 Confederate troops. What should he do? Oh, Mr. Wagstaff, he should annihilate them. Yes, he absolutely should. That is not what he does. He's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't prepared for this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop and train. Lincoln's like, who's still up here and communicating by telegraph, he's like, what? And McClellan's like, yes, I need to train because we weren't expecting this group of 15,000. Lincoln's like, no, don't you dare train. You attack right now. You're in enemy territory. And McClellan's like, I need to train some more. And Lincoln's like, you go now. And McClellan's like, I'm training. Like, McClellan kind of stands up to Lincoln, all right? and says, nah, I got to train my troops. He sits down here, all right, and is going to train his troops. He is in enemy territory for a month. He sits right here, McClellan does, and trains his troops for a month while this group of 15,000 Confederate troops for a month sit on top of this hill and just stare at him, all right? After a month, McClellan is confident that he can finally go and attack his 15,000 troops. So when McClellan starts marching towards his 15,000 troops, a month later, guess what they do? What they would have probably done to begin with. They ran away, all right? So when McClellan marches towards them, they run away. The reason this is important is you've given the Confederacy an entire month to come up with defenses to Richmond. So what happens is there's a big old army comes rolling out here, all right, ready to protect Richmond as McClellan comes marching in. And a huge battle is going to take place right here, all right? Now, who happens to be the leader of the Confederacy? Johnston. I joked about it yesterday, but I'm going to write it out here now. Johnston. So remember, there's two Johnstons that were in charge for the South at the start of the Civil War. There's one in the West and there's one in the East. The one in the West, who was the highest ranking officer, well, he ends up being killed at the Battle of Shiloh against Grant early on in the war. That Johnston is the highest ranking soldier, military person that is killed for the South in the Civil War. All right. So there's another Johnston here with a huge army. Now, McClellan has a big army. He is a very traditional type fighter. He doesn't think outside the box. He is very consistent. He is going to just march directly towards his army. Johnston, for the South, that's how he was trained too. He has a smaller army. He is going to march directly towards McClellan, all right? Now, McClellan's men are very well trained because he waits forever. Lincoln's furious. I mean, this battle shouldn't even happen if he had just used the element of surprise. So Lincoln's already grumpy about this. But McClellan's men are so well trained that when this battle right here happens, all right, it is an absolute dominating victory for McClellan, all right? And what ends up happening is not only is Johnston's army wiped out here at what's called the Seven Pines Battle, Johnston gets killed too, all right? This is huge. So the South's main legitimate army is gone at the Seven Pines Battle. Like, it's just completely wiped out. So basically what's standing between McClellan now as he moves towards Richmond to take it over? There's really nothing. There's nothing. Oh my gosh, this war could be over like really quick. What are we going to do? And the South is panicking. They don't know what to do. They're like, how are we going to do this? There's a guy over here washing dishes. Hey, how y'all doing? Y'all need a little help? And they're like, yes, Robert E. Lee, will you help us? And he's like, yep, and he takes off his apron. I mean, he's not actually washing dishes, but for my story, I like to pretend that he's been put at a lower position. They're going to put Robert E. Lee in charge. And they're like, this is our last hope. What can we possibly do? All right. So, this is a picture of the Seven Pines Battle. All right. This is the battle that McClellan is going to win as he wipes out Johnston and moves towards Richmond. The United States wears the blue uniforms, and consistently the Confederacy is a lot of times shown with gray. In movies, all the United States soldiers wear the exact same blue uniforms, and then all the Confederacy wear the exact same gray uniforms, because that's a movie thing. The North always did wear the exact same uniform because they had factories and all this other stuff. The South, they tried to have an official uniform with the gray uniforms because they didn't have the same dye that the North did. But a lot of times they're showing up in their own clothes, honestly, because supplies were so low in the South. But yeah, so this is a huge victory for the North. Looks like they're going to roll right on in to the South and wreck some shop. All right. So let me go back here to this map, because this is the best way of explaining what's getting ready to happen here. So let me put my... So this, again, Washington, D.C. This is Richmond. Richmond is not this far left. I just need to draw over in this area, so that's why I'm messing up some geography here. So what's happening is as McClellan, all right, and we'll say this is McClellan's army right here coming in. Lee, who gets put in charge, has a much smaller army right here. All right, so Lee comes out of Richmond. He's like, all right, it's like a goalie. He's like, come get some. Now, Lee is a fantastic general. Lee is going to make the Northern generals look dumb over and over and over and over. He always has a much smaller army. All right, he is undersupplied and all this other stuff, and he is going to run circles around the opposing generals. Now, he is always 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, and the big reason is all those generals that are sitting on the bench for Lincoln. Guess who was training them? Lee. Before he left, Lee knows every one of these guys. He knows their tendencies. He knows what they want to do. So he's 3 steps ahead of them. He knows exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to do it and how they will react when it happens. So Lee looks like he keeps doing dumb stuff, but it wins over and over and over. So like in history, you're like, oh, what's Lee do? Oh, Lee just did the dumbest possible thing anybody could do in that circumstance, but it won? That's pretty much what Lee does. So it could lead some people to believe that Lee is just the luckiest possible general on earth. All right. There's another school of thought that he just knew exactly what his enemy was going to do. There's a lot more to the second part. He does get lucky a little bit, but he also gets unlucky just as much. So his success really does come through being a very good, well-organized general and knowing who he's fighting. He knows he is fighting McClellan, all right? He knows McClellan's army is much bigger than his, and if he goes toe-to-toe, he's going to lose. So what Lee does every time is he's like, I need a right-hand man. He needs to have a second in command that follows instructions really well. So I can't about say Lincoln again. Lee says, here's who my second in command is. Stonewall Jackson, the hero of the first Battle of Bull Run for the South. That is going to be Lee's second in command. Lee and Stonewall Jackson are going to be a team, and they work fantastic together. So Lee sees McClellan moving at him. So here's what Lee says. He's like, I'll put a little L here. I want to stay right here. All right. What I want you to do, Jackson, is circle around behind him with half the troops. So he already has a smaller amount of troops, but he's going to split them in half and circle around behind, and we'll put a J here, all right, for Jackson, all right. So when McClellan shows up here to fight Lee outside Richmond, a huge battle starts. As soon as the battle starts, and this is going to be called the 7 Days Battle, guess how long it lasts? That's right, 7 days. Because Lee, he's on a hill, all right, which helps him out. Jackson is going to come in and attack him from behind, all right? McClellan only moves forward. He can't believe he's being attacked from behind, so he doesn't know how to turn his whole army around. Like he panics during the 7 days battle. He doesn't know how to defeat this. Now, McClellan and Lee and Jackson are losing men at about the same rate. McClellan has a lot more men. If Lee and Jackson and McClellan continue to fight, eventually Lee is going to run out of troops and McClellan's going to take over Richmond and end the war. McClellan doesn't like the fact he's losing men so fast, and McClellan is going to retreat from the 7 days battle and start running back to Washington, D.C. The 7 days battle is a huge victory for the South, for Robert E. Lee. You put Robert E. Lee in here with like no troops, no nothing almost, and him with a very small amount of troops is able to turn back the massive northern invasion here at the 7 days battle as McClellan retreats. And again, McClellan should never have, if McClellan would have just stayed and fought, he would have ended up winning. Would a bunch of people have died? Yes, but the war would have ended much earlier. McClellan runs back north. Now Lee, all right, and we're going to start talking about this here in a second. Lee isn't going to just stay back here and wait. Lee is going to follow McClellan back north. All right, and that's going to lead to another really, really cool story and another battle. So, this is so now that Lee is in charge and Lee's the man. All right, this is Stonewall Jackson. This is Robert E. Lee, and they're supposed to be receiving orders from Jefferson Davis. I imagine receiving orders from Jefferson Davis, who is the president of the Confederacy, is more of Lee's like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I need you to sign that and verify that. And Jefferson Davis is like, yes, sir. Robert E. Lee becomes a folk hero instantaneously in the South because his success at the 7 Days Battle and what's getting ready to happen. All right. So let's make myself smaller here. Boop, 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 boop. This leads to the second battle. Let's not jump ahead. All right. All right. So, yeah, let's pick up here. Let me show you what's happening. So you got Lincoln, the president. He is up here in, I don't know why that's so big. He is up here in Washington, D.C. You got McClellan, and we're going to put an M here, who is running north, right? Trying to run home. Who's chasing him? Lee. All right. Lincoln sees this, and he's like, stop, to McClellan. And McClellan stops. I don't really have a stop sign marker here, but McClellan stops right here. And he says, okay, this is Lincoln talking. Come on back. All right. So McClellan is like, I don't know why you're saying. He's like, no. Leave your troops there. You come on back. Because he's like, you have enough troops. Just turn around and go take over Richmond. And McClellan's like, I'm going to need more men, and I'm going to need to train more. Lincoln is furious. He's like, come back. I want to send another general down there that is going to fix this. And it's not you. So McClellan's men, all right, get left right here. That's where McClellan's men get left. You know what that area is called? Bull Run. The exact place they were trying to avoid. McClellan's men get left there. McClellan's getting brought back, and a new general is being sent down to meet up with McClellan's men to turn back around and come back down here to Richmond, which we'll say is right here. All right? Because why turn his big army around? Just go take over Richmond, win the war. Lincoln is getting very frustrated here. So, this is what Lincoln has to deal with. All right. McClellan has disappointed him. McClellan has lost the 7 Days Battle. So what happens to him? Now, typically, Lincoln is just going to fire people, all right? But McClellan clearly has shown he has some ability. So Lincoln's not completely ready to fire him yet. So what he's going to do is he's going to bench him, right? So McClellan is benched, all right? Because McClellan lost the 7 Days Battle. So Lincoln's like, all right, who else can I put in? Here's who he has left. The guy whose name he can't really remember. The moron, the coward, and the crazy dude who's like, he's like naked on the end of the bench. And Lincoln's like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you crazy? So he's like, all right, who can I put in? So who does he decide to put in? Hey, this guy doesn't have to do a whole lot. He's just got to take these troops, turn right back around, and head back down to Washington, D.C. So he puts in General John Pope. All right. So Pope's job is going to be to go down, meet up with McClellan's men, turn around, and go back to Washington, D.C. Now, here's an actual picture of Pope and him cussing McDowell, who was... I just like the quote. It kind of goes down a side story here to explain the quote to you. So, anywho, the reason I say he's the guy who you can't ever really remember, well, let me tell you the story why. All right, so we are back here real quick. Let me draw this for you. Boop. You got Washington, D.C. here. You got Richmond here. You got McClellan's men, or they're just kind of men sitting right here in the middle of Bull Run. All right. They're just sitting there. Now, even if it's 100,000 men, 100,000 men without a commander is like shooting fish in a barrel. I don't know, do you shoot fish in a barrel? Is it ducks in a barrel? Does it go out bobbing? I got to figure out my analogies because when I say them, they make sense in my brain. And then I say them and I just sound like a psycho. So, because you shouldn't shoot fish in a barrel. Like, why are you shooting things in a barrel? Why don't I just poke holes in the barrel and all the water? Whatever. So, Lee is right here. Lee knows that Pope, I'm going to put a little P, because Lee knows exactly what's happening there, right? That Pope is coming down here to meet up McClellan's men. Lee is like, I absolutely cannot, under any circumstance at all, allow Pope to meet up with McClellan's troops. So if he can keep Pope from meeting up with McClellan's troops, Lee can just decimate this whole thing. So here's what Lee. Here's what Lee does is once again, he's going to divide his army, but he's got to have a trustworthy second in command. That's going to be Stonewall Jackson. So Lee, this is a fantastic, I mean, this is the stuff that legends are made of. And I guess you would say, whatever. So Lee is going to send Jackson. They're going to ride with a small group of men, and they're going to ride on their horses all night, past the army, past Pope, onto a hillside next to Washington, D.C. That's a really ugly arrow, all right? Up here next to Washington, D.C. What Jackson, all right, and I will just put a J here for Jackson. What Jackson's job here is with a couple hundred men, is to go on a hillside next to Washington, D.C., and build as many campfires as you possibly can, all right? Hundreds of campfires, thousands of campfires. Make as many campfires as you can on the hillside next to Washington, D.C. Because Pope, who is the commander of the United States forces at the time, because he's been promoted, has left Washington, D.C. and is heading down to meet up with the troops. So there's really nothing defending Washington, D.C. When Lincoln that night looks up on the hillside and sees all these campfires, he thinks there's a massive army up on the side of the hill. He thinks he's getting ready to be invaded. Well, if you're going to be invaded here in Washington, D.C., you need your head general back. Who's his head general? Is Pope. So he sends a message to Pope, who's halfway here to meet up with McClellan's men, and says, whoa, I changed my mind. I need you to come back and protect me. And Pope's like, okie dokie. And so as Pope turns around and comes back, guess who meets him? Jackson. But Jackson only has a couple hundred men. So what can he possibly do? Well, so as Pope hunkers down to fight Jackson, Lee shows up behind Pope and is able to defeat, because Pope got sent down with a few thousand men. So he wasn't like by himself on a horse. A couple thousand men. Lee shows up and Jackson and Pope, Lee and Jackson team up and defeat Pope. It more or less was just a surrender. There wasn't even really a battle right here. So Pope is surrendered and Pope is sent back to Washington, D.C. As a loser here, because here's what's really important. Let's see if I can just erase all this right here. All right. Boom, 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 boom. Boop, 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 boop. Is that Lee is now right here. What is between all of McClellan's men, or Pope's men, whatever you want to call them, and Washington, D.C.? Lee. There's no way you can get a leader out here to these men. This is the shooting fish in a barrel. I got to come up with my analogy. I didn't realize that until I'm trying to teach it. The shooting fish in a barrel, is that the analogy? Like you're doing something really simple? Like, don't shoot fish in a barrel. That I must have got that analogy wrong somehow, and I didn't realize it until I'm recording this. So it's going to be here forever. All right. So what does Lee do? Annihilates this army of the United States that is leaderless. That is called the Second Battle of Bull Run, and it is absolutely bonkers. And so the Second Battle of Bull Run ends. The North is just getting decimated. And Lee is just running circles around them. So Lincoln has to figure out how he is going to progress forward after the Second Battle of Bull Run. And that's where we're going to pick up tomorrow with more of these Lincoln running circles around the enemy. All right, everybody. I will see y'all tomorrow.